Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Orji Uzor Kalu. I represent Abia North of Abia State Senatorial District. Mr. President, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Nominee, thank you for coming, and my question will be very brief to you because your resume have shown. When I got this resume, I thought I was going to go back to school. I asked the person, is there a CV? He said yes. The young lady that brought it, I said, for you? He said yes. And I was surprised. But knowing you as a professor, let me go straight to the question. One persistent challenge that have been of late is the deployment of materials and personnel. Knowing the vastness of our nation and the complexity of the country, tell us, what strategy will you bring to manage the complexity of the country, especially on the areas that have bad terrains and security challenges? These areas are areas that you must not allow any Nigeria to be disenfranchised because they have security challenge or because people will tell you, oh, that place is hilly, that place is far. What is your strategy? Is threatening to give free, fair, and just election that will be acceptable by all Nigerians. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Ositangu.
Thank you, Mr. President and my colleagues. My name is Ositangu Ogun. I represent Enugu West. Prof, I'll congratulate you, but I'm sure you have had enough accolades. So I'll go straight to the question. No matter how beautiful our electoral policies and procedures are, the integrity of the people who carry out this election matters. Now I'm going to talk about the integrity of the people who either are INEC staff or ad hoc staff, who are going to be the people who conduct these elections. Prof, how are you going to set up an internal mechanism that is going to deter the people conducting elections from compromising? How are you going to prevent it? And what mechanism are you going to put in place to detect when such compromises occur? And finally, how are you going to ensure that there is adequate punishment, maybe working with the National Assembly, to prosecute those who are entrusted with the responsibility to conduct the election, but who goes back to compromise the election? Thank you very much.
Very good question. I wish it came last so that you can reassure all Nigerians. But it's a very good question. Very, very good question. Because Prof can only administer, but the real nitty-gritty is with those who are vested with the responsibility of going to the nooks and crannies of the nation. What they do and bring back can either mar his administration or promote his administration. So, Prof, at that stage, I think you should answer together with the other questions so far asked.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished senators. May I respond by taking the last question first? I think that is a major concern. That is the question of Senator Osita. It's a major concern of everybody, because one of the things that we have to do is to work out an internal mechanism that we can use to trail the behavior of humans. In the first place, I'm taking this position on trust, and the people who I'm going to work with they must also appreciate the fact that they are there on trust. And because you have made the law, that should be done. So one of the ways is to set up an ethical committee so that you can have an audit of what has happened, because there have been several cases that have been reported and nothing were done. Some have been taken to court, like in Bayelsa State, there were some cases like that, and I believe in Adamawa, where some people were prosecuted and even convicted. So we are going to follow through and pursue that course. And also to say that maybe we are also going to work with the National Assembly, because there will be need for some legislative intervention in some cases. For instance, there is a need for an electoral offenses commission that would be able to investigate. INEC does not really have the capacity presently. You investigate, you detect, investigate, and then prosecute. And strengthening the internal disciplinary procedure, following due process, to ensure that those that are involved in such misconduct are brought to book, even if we need to use forensic to do that. And we also hope to probably see, well, I have not gotten there, but we have factored it as part of the likely challenges we are going to confront. We can introduce a whistleblowing policy too that will enable people to detect and expose such practices so that it can be dealt with. If I now go to distinguished Senator Uzor Kalu, deployment of materials, the complexity of the country, the issue of security. I want to say that the issue of security is a major challenge. But at the same time, it can be confronted headlong. I know there's a joint committee on election security. So one of the things we have to do is to work with that committee and see how we can strengthen security in those challenge areas. Additionally, we can also invest more on logistics to ensure that every part of Nigeria we can penetrate. Even if we have to use drones or whatever, with necessary safeguards to ensure that those materials get to those places, because no voter will be left behind. And that will be one of our policies. Now, also addressing Senator Ningi's question, participation and love for Nigeria, there's going to be aggressive voters education and civic education, so that INEC will perform that role under Section 2 of the Act, which is a major responsibility to ensure that people are educated. You build capacity not just of your staff, of all the election stakeholders, including the political parties, the members of political parties, the masses, as well as technocrats and elites. So we will embark on aggressive civic education and build capacity to be able to confront those challenges. On the issue of transmission of real time, I was looking at the amendment to the Electoral Act. We are going to look at what it is as it is now. Thankfully, it's not been concluded. So if I'm giving the nod, I will have the opportunity to make my own input and also to look at the decision of courts and see how that issue can be addressed. I spoke to it earlier on that nobody seemed to even understand what it was. And a lot of people felt it was another collation system. But Supreme Court said it was not. So we just need to look at it and see what is on ground. So when we get there, we'll see what is on ground, the infrastructure, and how best to approach it. Because we understand the fact that it can add credibility to our election. Distinguished Senator Tambuasa, I want to identify some areas which I believe have already been handled in the amendments. For instance, the issue of timeline, which is requiring the amendment of the Constitution. But apart from that, there are even inconsistent timeline provisions within the Act itself. Because you set some timelines which is in contradiction with another provisions on timeline. So all those issues will have to be streamlined and ensure that there are no ambiguities. And then we have election litigation. So we are going to see how an election is credible so that the loser will even come and congratulate the winner and say you won fairly and well. So if we can do that, it's just like a judge convicting a person, sentencing him to death, and he say, well done, because I believe I've got injustice. And the distinguished Senator Boje, on issue of security, I think I've spoken to that, sir, that we will look into it. I don't have the facts now, but I know there's a joint action committee which I co-chair. And then we'll see how best to address the issue of security as far as election materials are concerned. And finally, distinguished Senator Yari, thank you for your question, sir. I want to say that you have enough laws. This Parliament, National Assembly, have enacted laws for the purposes of ensured proper utilization of funds, and that is the Procurement Act and the Finance Act. So those laws that have been enacted will be enforced strictly in order to ensure that funding of the Commission are utilized for the purpose for which they have been given. And if there are opportunities to save funds, to save costs, we shall also do that. Thank you, sir. Distinguished Your Excellency, sir, the Senate President.
Distinguished colleagues, is it the view of the Senate that he could sit down and write the questions before going back to the microphone? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You see the way they are looking forward to your coming.